The New Orleans Saints just rebuilt everything. This is from Fanatic Field. All right, so this video came out post-draft. We are going to give it a listen and react along the way.
Expected the New Orleans Saints to walk out of the 2025 NFL Draft without a single trade, and yet somehow they made every one of their 9 picks feel like a calculated strike.
Yeah.
No wheeling, no dealing, just straight execution. And here's the wild part. Not one future asset was touched. In a draft full of chaos and impulsive trades, the Saints stood still and still came out with one of the most complete hauls in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Saints, if you look at the draft, you look at the strategy, the philosophy, or whatever, they did exactly what we want them to do, exactly what we said they should have done, and I think everyone that's a Saints fan should feel pretty good coming out of it. I mean, you have 9 picks, 9, in a year where it's imperative you get younger and you get cheaper, and you make all 9 picks. And if we make these guys impact players, if they get on the field, if they're contributing, then Saints are in a great position. You copy and paste that a few more years. Doesn't take a genius to do the math, right? 7 picks next year or whatever. You start extrapolating that out, all of a sudden it's like, damn, you turn the whole roster over. And for a team that's about to have a lot of its aging players off the books, or some players just generally off the books, like Derek Carr, whatever happens, his contract's coming out or coming to an end. DeMario Davis, Tyrann Mathieu, Cam Jordan, like all these guys who we just saw Ryan Ramczyk retire a few months ago. So we're already kind of turning that page to the next era of the New Orleans Saints. And the best way to do that is to have 9, 15, 23, 30 guys over the course of however many years ready to step in and play.
But the question fans can't stop asking is simple. Was this draft class good enough to fix what's broken? The front office made one thing painfully clear. This was a foundation draft.
Yeah.
No splashy receivers, no desperate moves. Just 9 selections meant to rebuild the identity of a roster that's been crumbling piece by piece. From the trenches to the backfield, the Saints filled holes across every phase of the field. And yet, even with the position depth they added, one thing is still missing, and it could haunt them. Because while fans got their linemen, linebackers, and future role players, they didn't get answers to the biggest question of all. Where's the offensive firepower? That's why we need to start with the player who defines this draft's tone. An anchor for the trenches, a top 20 prospect, and a pick that's already dividing the fan base. Let's talk about Kelvin Banks Jr. The pick.
I said it when it happened. I've said it every video since then. Slam dunk home run pick. Like Kelvin Banks, fantastic pick. If he is just Talise Fuaga, and you have Fuaga and Banks as your tackles for the next 10 years, cool. Eric McCoy's an elite level center. Within 2 years, like think about this just from the front office. Within 2 years, the Saints have gone from having arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL and the biggest weakness of the team to its biggest strength is the offensive line, and it's very young and set up for the future. I mean, what else can you ask for as a Saints fan? What else can you ask for when you are – it was not that long ago that we're sitting here saying this offensive line is terrible. Alvin Kamara's averaging 3 yards a carry because this offensive line is horrific. They're getting nothing. They're getting nothing. And then, boom, 2 drafts later, no big splashy free agent hires, no $60 million contracts on the offensive line, no trades. You just organically build, and now you have a true strength of this team with most of it on young rookie contracts. I mean, that is kind of how you do it. That is kind of how you do this. And the Saints added depth in positions where they already have players, like safety. Like adding Justin Reed in free agency and then turning around and taking Sanker in the draft. Cool. Rocking and rolling. You go get Godshaw. You draft Broughton. Okay. You already have Brian Brzee. Like all of a sudden now you got these rotational depth pieces. Maybe one of them takes that next step and becomes the tried and true starter, the elite level starter. Same with our edge players. We have 5 or 6 rotational edge players. You're hoping that your Anderson and Chase Young can just kind of keep things rocking and rolling at an above average level. And maybe if one of them takes a step forward or one of the young guys kind of gets up there. But where the roster is now, is it splashy? No, it's not. Is it good? Yes. The Saints have done exactly what we talked about with not rebuilding, remodeling. I used an analogy a long time ago where they're redoing the house and remodeling the house while living in it. They can't just gut everything. They can't just gut everything and get it down to studs, and because they got to live in it. So we're going to do the kitchen, then we're going to move on to the living room. We're not going to do all the cabinets at once. We're not going to pull out all the appliances. We're going to go step by step by step by step, get a foundation going, and then we can keep moving. So the fact that Mickey and the group have stuck to this amidst a complete turnover of your coaching staff to keep that identity, to keep that philosophy, very impressive.
That set the foundation, but left some fans wanting more. But before we get into that, hit that like and subscribe button for more Saints and all the NFL content. Let's aim for 300 likes on this video. When the Saints used their first-round pick on Kelvin Banks Jr., it wasn't just a safe move, it was a message. Yeah. This team is done patching holes. They're rebuilding from the inside out, brick by brick. Banks wasn't the flashiest name on the board, but he was one of the most respected. A dominant offensive tackle with the kind of footwork, strength, and IQ that rarely come packaged together. Top 20 prospect wasn't just a tag, it was a warning. If the Saints wanted to send a signal that the trenches matter again, they just dropped the mic. But here's what stirs the debate. Fans weren't begging for an offensive lineman. They wanted weapons, explosiveness. Something that would make defenses nervous the moment the ball was snapped. Instead, they got a protector, a builder, and in many ways, a gamble that patience will pay off. Banks is the kind of pick that won't win headlines.
I mean, like, I don't know how true that is. I'm sure certain fans always want offensive players. They always want running backs and wide receivers and tight ends, and to a certain extent, that can be cool. And yeah, if it does work out, then it's worth it. You know, like if Tyler Warren's the next Travis Kelce or George, whatever, then yeah, okay, take him. If Tedero McMillan is the next Randy Moss or Mike Evans, then yeah, okay, take him. But you're never ever going to. It's never bad to shore up your offensive line, and especially if your board represents that. You know, if you have Kelvin Banks super high on your board and you don't have Tyler Warren or Ted McMillan or whoever that high, then yeah, okay, take Banks. So I don't think maybe in that moment, but I can't imagine at this point too many fans are like, damn man, I wish we had Ted McMillan and not Banks. Like I think everyone's pretty cool with having Banks as the pick, and I think it was the right pick. I think it's an A+. I thought it was awesome.
It's today, but might win games tomorrow. That's the dilemma. Drafting for long-term value in a league that demands instant results. Still, this pick opens the door to one major ripple effect. It sets the stage for a new quarterback to survive or fail. And with that in mind, the next player becomes even more important.
I mean, it does feel good. It does feel good just to be able to set your offensive line. To just set Banks, McCoy, Fuaga, Ruiz, and we'll see what happens at guard, whether it's Dillon or whether it's Trevor Penning or whatever happens there. But like that's one of those things where there is such value in that. There is such value in just for the next at least 4 years to just sit there and say, like, we know we have the tackle positions covered. We know tackle and center are fine, barring injury. And not just fine, but like above average to, we'll see what happens with Banks and Fuaga this year. But like, if Fuaga takes a step forward and Banks is as good as we think he is, that's an elite. You have two elite tackles and an elite center. And moving forward, like building a team out and setting an identity and creating a culture and doing all that, I mean, that not a lot of teams can say that.
Because if the Saints truly want a new era, why did they gamble on this quarterback? The Saints didn't just draft a quarterback, they drafted a debate. When Tyler Show's name was called with the 40th overall pick, it wasn't met with cheers. It was met with confusion. This wasn't the electric dual threat guy fans had been dreaming of. This was a quarterback with question marks, a career filled with transfers, injuries, and inconsistencies. And yet, the Saints passed on flashier names to handpick a signal caller who, on paper, looks eerily like a younger version of the man they may be preparing to move on from, Derek Carr. What's really going on here? Behind the scenes, this feels like a power move from new OC Kellen Moore. Show fits his style, a rhythm.
This is my nightmare. My nightmare is to put something out there and I'm just wrong. Like I'm just saying show, or I'm saying new OC Kellen Moore, and then it's just out there, and then there's 20,000 eyeballs on it, and I just look like a goof. It is what it is. I'll give this guy. It does look like show, but it's a tough look, man. That's a tough look for sure. And honestly, I was really just kind of waiting to see how that played out before I even said anything, but. I think Shuck, we've covered this a million times. It's amazing how fast, like a new era can happen. And with the Saints, like whether Shuck works out or whether Rattler works out or whether you're a year away from whatever quarterback coming in, like once Derek Carr is out of the picture, which I would think he pretty much is now, it is a new era. Like whoever your quarterback is, or if he's even in the building, like you look at like New England, right? When Belichick leaves and they're kind of just floundering around, they've got nothing going on. Gerard Mayo is just like, yeah, you can tell he doesn't have it. Think about now. Look at New England. You have Vrabel, you've got Drake May, you got Will Campbell. You have this new identity, you have this new kind of culture, and they haven't even played a game. That's how fast this can happen. The Saints are setting themselves up for that. Whether it is this year or next year, I can promise you, screenshot this, snapshot it, record it, whatever. I can promise you this time next year, it's going to feel like and look like a completely different team. Completely different. It's obvious what they're doing, and it's working. It feels different. It is different. We got new voices. We got new leaders. We got new foundational pieces. This is an exciting time to be a Saints fan. And I'm thrilled. I am thrilled with the season that we're about to see. And it might not be perfect. Like whether it's Shuck or Rattler or whatever, it might not be perfect. We can't expect everything to happen immediately, but we are on the road. We've done the hard part. The hard part was Sean Payton leaving, Drew Brees retiring, Dennis Allen, Pete Carmichael, the Michael Thomas fiasco, the Derek Carr fiasco, the Darren Rizzi taking over, like all that was the hard part. Even like the Ryan Ramczyk contract and the retirement and like Marshawn Lattimore trade and all those things that have happened, those were the difficult things. We're on the other side of it. We're on the other side of what would have made this really, really hard. Now, we're on the upswing. Salary cap's getting fixed. Big old contracts are falling off. We're years removed from those situations. We're installing a new offense and a new defense. We have the new voices in here. We have the new identity in here. We're on the upswing. We're right in front of it. Just like if you're a Patriots fan, you're feeling pretty damn good. You're looking around going, man, okay, we have an identity, we have a culture, we have new pieces, we have new voices, like we have a leader, like we're moving forward. It didn't seem like that 2 years ago. It didn't seem like that a year ago. Broncos, it didn't seem like that when you had Nathaniel Hackett and Russell Wilson. It still didn't seem like that when you had Sean Payton and Russell Wilson. But now the Broncos feel pretty good, right? You have Bo Nix, you have Sean Payton, you have a sick defense. Like things, it's like, okay, I can see what we're doing here. I can see where we're headed. So regardless of what you think about Shuck or Rattler or Show, you got to be feeling so damn good.
Rhythm passer with just enough mobility and a high football IQ. But let's be honest, the fan base didn't want just enough. They wanted someone to shake up the identity of this team, not echo it. Show's college film shows toughness, leadership, and flashes of arm talent, but nothing that screams franchise savior. So why him? Why now? Maybe the Saints see something the rest of us don't. Or maybe this pick was more about scheme comfort than ceiling. But one thing is certain, if the front office is betting this big on a quarterback with this much baggage, then they better protect him.
I've said this before with Show, and I'll say it again. This is like the perfect bet to make, right? This is the perfect bet to make where it's relatively low risk with the fact that you spend a second round pick. He's older, so the question mark around development time and all that stuff isn't really there either. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And if it doesn't work, you can kind of cut and move on. Not literally cut, but you can kind of like finish this little experiment out, move on to the next thing pretty easily and pretty quickly, like the Titans did with Will Levis. Of course, I hope Shuck works out, or if it's Rattler, I hope he works out. But because of their situations, this does make sense to take a flyer here, because if it works, man, you are lined up, right? Like if it works, if all the foundational pieces are good, if all this that we're talking about, all the draft picks come true, everything works out, and Tyler Shuck works out, then all of a sudden, there is no rebuild. You're rocking and rolling, right? And if all that stuff works out, but Shuck doesn't work out or Rattler doesn't work out, no harm, no foul. We're not locked into a top 10 pick. We're not locked into some crazy deal. We're not locked into a $100 million contract with Aaron Rodgers. You just swing at the next one, right? So even if you factor in like worst case scenario, middle case scenario, best case scenario, this is, as far as like a calculated risk, this is a perfect time to take that calculated risk.
And that brings us straight to the heart of the Saints' next priority: stopping the bleeding in the trenches on the
thank
other.
Thank God we don't have to hear him say show anymore. Tough look. Give him some grace, ladies and gentlemen.
Side of the ball. If there was one thing the Saints couldn't ignore heading into this draft, it was their run defense. In 2024, they were getting gashed on the ground, ranked near the bottom of the league in yards per carry allowed. So when Vernon Broughton was announced as the next pick, it was clear what the Saints were targeting: physicality in the trenches. Broughton brings size, toughness, and raw power. He's not a finesse guy. He's the kind of player who plugs gaps, swallows running lanes, and eats up double teams.
Brandon Staley is the type of defensive coordinator who's going to put people on the field in different situations that allows him to maximize their abilities. So Staley is the kind of guy who it's like Broughton may play, Brzee might play, blank player might play, Godshaw might play, where it's like, all right, they're rotating in and out depending on the situation. And yeah, it was obvious the Saints wanted to fix their run defense. Their run defense was horrible last year. For a stretch there, we were giving up like 7 yards a carry. You look at Stutzman, who's got a 90-plus grade on his run defense. You look at Broughton. All these guys are going to come in to do that job. So the Saints, even while they were fixing all the other things we were talking about, they really prioritized fixing the run defense.
He may not light up a stat sheet, but he fills a role the Saints have desperately lacked: an anchor.
Yeah, fill a
role.
Then
came Jonas Sanker, a pick that flew under the radar for most fans, but might end up being a quiet home run.
Yeah.
He's not your typical safety.
No, he's downhill, lay the lumber, big-time tackler, very physical, can play all over the place. Love the pick.
He hits like a linebacker and plays with zero hesitation.
Yep.
The Saints didn't just want a DB. They wanted an enforcer. And that's exactly what Sanker is. He brings flexibility, lining up all over the secondary, but what really makes him dangerous is his motor. The guy doesn't take plays off.
He plays special teams. Like, he's a captain. He was a defensive captain at Virginia, plays special teams. He certainly doesn't take plays off, but exactly what I was saying previously, Brandon Staley has pieces now, because it's very 1995 to be like, well, Tyrann Mathieu and Justin Reed are your starting safeties. Where is Sanker going to play? It's like, yeah, they're the starters, but in today's NFL, you got to be able to move around. Like, you got to be able to bring people in, bring people out. It's not just like set it, forget it. The starting 11 is the starting 11. Like, that's just not how the NFL is anymore. Same with the defensive line. Like, yeah, you might say, okay, well, Brzee is starting on the inside, Young and Granderson, but they're going to be rotated in depending on the situation. Sanker is just so much versatility.
He's fast, violent, and always around the ball. But here's where things get interesting. These two picks weren't glamorous, but they were aggressive. The Saints are clearly trying to bring back the toughness that once defined their identity. And just when it looked like the draft was all about filling obvious needs, they pulled off a pick that nobody saw coming, and it turned out to be their boldest move yet. Every draft has that one moment where fans stop scrolling and start paying attention, and for the Saints, that moment was pick 112. Danny Stutzman wasn't just a good pick, he was a statement.
Danny Stutzman.
A relentless, high-motor linebacker with back-to-back 100-plus tackle seasons and a resume full of chaos plays. This wasn't a reach. This was robbery.
Yeah.
The Saints.
I mean, this is a guy who was linebacker 3 before the college football season. A lot of people had him in the conversation as linebacker 1. The fact that you get him in the 4th round, he's got an RAS score similar to Jihad Campbell, faster than Jihad Campbell, same exact size as Jihad Campbell. I mean, Stutzman is a monster. This may end up being the steal. Like, this may end up being the guy where it's like, damn, Danny Stutzman's one of the best linebackers in the NFL.
Found a defensive captain in the 4th round, and somehow most teams let it happen.
Yeah.
He's young, explosive, and plays with the kind of fire that doesn't show up in testing numbers, but you feel it on every down. What makes this pick even scarier is how overlooked it's been. Stutzman doesn't carry the hype of a first rounder, but he checks every box you want in a long-term starter. He wraps up, reads plays fast, and rarely misses. But it's his mentality that stands out most. He plays like someone who's always trying to prove a point.
I mean, he's got 2,400 reps. 2,400 snaps at Oklahoma. That's the kind of experience you're getting. That's the kind of resume you're getting with this guy, on top of one of the better RAS scores for linebackers, which means he's one of the best athletes at the linebacker position. Like, you get that in the 4th round. Whew.
That kind of hunger doesn't fade. It grows. And on a Saints defense that's looking for leaders to emerge, Stutzman might be the spark they didn't know they needed. By the time the Saints reached the middle rounds, most teams were grabbing leftovers. But
and also, it's like, what's the best thing he does? Stop the run. So on top of everything we just said, his best trait is also what the Saints need the most, a run stopper.
New Orleans, they found hidden gems. Quincy Riley was one of them. A ball hawk with elite instincts and rare production. 15 interceptions.
Yeah, so Quincy Riley was taken with a draft pick that was acquired in the Marshawn Lattimore trade. This is easy business. Trade Lattimore, get some pieces, take not a one-for-one replacement, but take a defensive back. Like, that's how you do business. So now all of a sudden, you lose the Debo, you lose Lattimore, you go get Isaac Yiadom, you get Quincy Riley, you have Alontae Taylor, you have Kool-Aid McKinstry, you've got Sanker you can move around. What the rotation will look like, we'll find out, but secondary has some pieces now.
Over 5 college seasons and 26 pass breakups in just 2 years. That's not luck. That's anticipation, timing, and pure confidence. Riley isn't walking into the spotlight as a starter, but he's walking into a perfect storm. Low pressure, high upside, and a defense that rewards aggressive corners. In a pass-heavy league, you can never have too many defensive backs, and the Saints just stole one with day 2 talent on day 3. Then came Devin Neal, and this one's different. This wasn't a project or a long shot. This was production.
But they're all, like, that's the theme. There are no long shots. There are no projects. There is no development. None of these guys are raw. I mean, you could argue, like, maybe Shuck, a.k.a. Shao, a.k.a. Show, because of, like, because of his career or whatever. But even that, he's mature, he's older, whatever. So the more you look at this and the more you dig into it, yeah, are these guys household names? No. Devin Neal's not a household name unless you go to Kansas. Danny Stutzman's not a household name unless you actually are attending Oklahoma. But when you step back and look at this, and you dig into the PFF, and you dig into the numbers, you dig into the analytics, and you match it up with the Saints' need, this is like as perfect as this is about as perfect of a draft as you could have asked for.
Distant, proven, and undeniable. 3 straight seasons over 1,000 rushing yards, 16 touchdowns in 2024 alone, and enough burst to hit 6 yards per carry. What makes Neal dangerous is his balance. He's not just a runner. He catches out of the backfield, protects in pass pro, and barely fumbles. For a 6th rounder, that's not depth. That's insurance with starting potential. Finally, Moliki Matavao might not have made headlines, but his value was quietly solid. A reliable tight end with strong hands and surprising burst, he averaged over 12 yards per catch last season and dropped just 1 ball. He won't be a TE1 anytime soon, but he's got enough tools to earn a role. And in a crowded tight end room, that's all he needs. But just when the draft felt complete, the Saints had one more pick. And that final move may have been their smartest yet. Because
I love the Darren Rizzi B-roll.
It gave them something every roster needs, but few truly find: controlled chaos off the edge. So here's the real question, Saints fans. Should New Orleans go all in on a veteran WR now, or wait for a late trade or training camp cut? And who's your ideal target? Keenan Allen, DJ Chark, or someone else entirely? Drop your take in the comments and hit subscribe.
I've never heard someone actually say WR. I get in trouble. I've gotten in trouble in the past for saying these are AI videos, and I get people screaming and crying that it's not AI. Whatever. You know, hearing show and hearing WR. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, the Saints absolutely did rebuild and absolutely do love it. And I mean, these players are players. Like, they're going to get on. They're going to be on the field. You look at last year, not last year as in like 2 weeks ago. You look at the previous draft, the last couple of picks, like you knew they weren't going to play. Jalen Ford, Christian Boyd, and Josiah Nazirim. Like you knew they weren't going to play. You knew their projects, their long term. They maybe never step on the field. You cannot say that about any of the picks from this year. All of the picks from this year are expected to play. All of the picks from this year are expected to play immediately. I mean, they're expected to be quarterback 1, running back 2, linebacker 1. Like they're all right tackle 1, cornerback 3. Like they're all up there. These are not practice squad players. These are not, let's see what happens in a year or two. These are, okay, be ready by September. And even like in Devin Neal's case, it's like, well, you probably won't be starting, but you're our backup running back. That, I guarantee you, that's the thought process for Devin Neal. It's an unassuming draft because of, you know, this Saints offseason has been such a conundrum because all these players, it's like, oh, well, they're unassuming, you know, no one knows really who they are, like blah blah blah. They're not you know, names that every single person is chanting for, but that's not because they're at small schools. You know, it's like Texas, Louisville, Oklahoma. You know, like they're big schools. These are Power 5 programs. So the whole draft is kind of a puzzle when you look at it. But I think they nailed it. And you know, we've really been doing some deep dives into a lot of the players, and it's important because these guys I truly believe we're on the beginning of the next era of the New Orleans Saints. So when we're talking about Danny Stutzman and Devin Neal and Tyler Shuck, a.k.a. Shao, a.k.a. Show, when we're talking about Kelvin Banks, like we're talking about guys who more than likely we will be talking about for the next 4 to 8 years, maybe even longer for some of these guys. You know, so are we talking about the next Marshawn Lattimore? Are we talking about the next Tyrann Mathieu? Are we talking about the next Ryan Ramczyk, the next Mark Ingram? Are we talking about the next franchise quarterback? Time will tell. Are we talking about the next Sheldon Rankins, the next Pete Warren, the next whatever? Like, time will tell and all that. But these guys have a good chance, for sure. And you marry that with a 36-year-old head coach and the youngest coaching staff in NFL history, it's a good day to be a Saints fan. All right, ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video.